gentlemen of all genders, please find your seats and silence all digital devices. This performance will last approximately 7 years. You will experience 3 abortions, 1 out of your control, 2 totally your choice. The death of your best friend after a 4-year dance with cancer. You will hold him in your arms as he takes his last breath 2 months before your first child is born. The unexpected death of another beloved friend. You will stumble across him sitting there on his favourite chair in the living room. You will hold his cold, dead hand in your own. 1 childbirth, a 24-hour labour in the woods with no drugs. Parenthood, during which your baby will fall from a shelf, a few beds and other high places. 1 miscarriage, alone, in a hotel room on a very cold Christmas night. A strobe light, smoke, and other special effects may be used. There is adult content and graphic language. Please be aware, there will be 1 intermission. Please feel free to use the loos, which is what the American people call restrooms. Talk to a stranger. It's weird, I know, you could. Visit the bar. Buy alcohol at the bar, or simply stay in your seat, reflecting on the nature of life, death, reality, pain, and the human condition. And now, please give a warm welcome to Amanda fucking Bond.
I've been on stage 5 seconds, I already fucking knocked something over. Hi. I'm now playing in a pool of blood. People keep asking me why I do things like I do. And in all of this measuring influence, I forgot you. You and me lying behind the Monahegan Hotel. Told me things that nobody around me would tell. That was the summer when everyone touched me at once. It's like one day they ignored me, the next they were all down my pants. Before anyone else. You opened beside me and held me when I needed you. You and me lying together at night in my hand. Inside me forever. Judy Blume. this shit figured. I'm so happy to be here. I've been touring this show all up and down the East Coast, but I just had this inkling that when I got to San Francisco, everything would just get easy. Because everyone would just be like, but you know, things are fucked up everywhere right now, so congratulations on having your own coast of fucked upness. I'm gonna talk to you a lot tonight. I don't usually do my shows like this, but I have a lot to say. So, fuck it. The Judy Blume story is real. Like I forget when I wrote that song. It was 2013 or 14, but it just like occurred to me one day. Fuck, I forgot about her. I didn't forget about her, but I've never actually, you know, I'm like in my late 30s now. I've never actually paid attention. I've never listed her as an influence. You know, you go through this thing as a musician where like when you're a young musician and all of a sudden things are happening and journalists are asking you who's your influence, you're like, oh shit, I have to get this right. It needs to be believable, but awesome. So you cherry pick. Like, you know, I listened to hundreds and thousands of records in my teenage years. Many of them, like dozens and dozens of them obsessively. So, you know, you can't list all of them. And you're like, well, you know what's gonna sound good. And like everything, you know, from the beginning it's true. Like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, ABBA, that was all true. I could list it, you know, it was a long time. And then as soon as I had agency in my teen years, I was really lucky. I was sort of taken from pop world by my older brother, Carl, who I worshipped, who was like, okay, it's cool that you're into music. Cyndi Lauper and Madonna they're fine. You should be listening to The Cure. And then a few years later, I met my German boyfriend. He was like, The Cure is okay. Let's introduce you to the hard stuff. And he was the one who gave me Nick Cave and Swans and Curry 93 and Legendary Pink Dots and Coil and all these bands you've never heard of. And yet, like when I picture my CD collection from, you know, when I was about 17, it's mostly just old British white men. I love them so much. You know, they had a specific set of things they wrote about, and mostly, you know, like as I was taking notes as a young songwriter, like most of the hallmark of all of their music is that you could not fucking understand what they were writing about. That was what made it awesome. So I was like, okay, like in order to write good, cool song, like make sure no one knows what the fuck you're ever talking about. And, you know, certainly they weren't writing about subjects that were immediately affecting me. as a 17-year-old girl in the suburbs of Massachusetts. You know, I had hundreds of CDs. I was an avid music collector, but there wasn't a single song in the collection that could hold my hand when I went through an abortion at 17 in high school. And there would have been one if I had actually believed the people who came to me and said, you'll really like Tori Amos, you'll really like Ani DeFranco. And I looked at both Tori Amos and Ani DeFranco and I was like, I can't like that. It was way too close to home, and also I could understand kind of what they were singing about, which just made them inherently uncool. I started writing songs when I was very, very young. Like I wrote great bad songs when I was 8, 9, and 10, and you'll never hear them. And in my teen years, I always kept a tape recorder on the side of the rickety old piano that was in my parents' living room, which was the instrument I was raised on. And I recorded thousands, literally. You know, I did a project on this in college, thousands of hours of improv and song ideas. I was really bad at finishing things. I hated myself for not finishing things. But the best moments on these tapes are actually when my parents come into the room. There's an amazing moment on one of these tapes where I'm like wildly improvising and my stepfather, John, comes into the room and he's like, Amanda, it's 10 o'clock at night. Some of us have to work in the morning. And that's not even music! You're just going bang, bang, bang on the piano. Bang, bang, but you need a therapist. You're getting your aggressions out on the piano. I kind of feel bad. I don't know, really. It helped me. My friend has problems with Benjamin Button. They give him prescriptions. They shoot my guts. I really say it's genetic. Then take a took if they say you can catch it. But say that you're wrong with it. My friend has blight. Gets shakes in the night. They say that there's no way that they could have got it. And time takes its toll on them. It's traditional. It is inherited. Predisposition. All day I've been wondering what's inside of me. Who can I blame for it? I say it runs in the family. This my friendship with him grew, and my attachment to him was so intense that when I was in high school and got into theater, if I had to cry on command for some reason, for some performance, all I would have to do was think about Anthony dying. And it would just get me going. And one of the things that made him such an incredible mentor and teacher is that he never told me what to do. And I would even beg him to tell me what to do. And he just wouldn't. He would talk with me endlessly. We would discuss things. He would teach me. We would turn things over from all angles. But I would get to these points in my life, these these moments where the path was obviously going to diverge to the left or to the right. Like, do I move to this city? Do I leave grad school? Do I break up with this person? Like, I've weighed all the pros and cons. I just don't fucking know. You're older and you're smarter. So I broke up with heroin boyfriend, and that was in the fall. And a few months later, on Christmas, he died. I got the call from one of our housemates. And a week later, my grandmother died. And a few months later, my grandfather died. And then right after that, my brother died of Lou Gehrig's disease. He got it suddenly and he went fast. And I was 19. I had no tools to handle this. And I also had just gone abroad, so I was away from everything I knew. I mostly just drank and smoked clove cigarettes. Had sex with a lot of German people. But one of the things that I haven't put together until recently is I also stopped writing music. I had been so prolific and had improvised so much and was just constantly outpouring until that point. And for a long time, I realized, like, through my 20s and 30s, I blamed it on college. Like, I hated the school that I went to. My parents made me go to a liberal arts college. I should have gone to a music school. I should have gone to an art school. The school I actually went to sucked. The people that I went to school, like, it never occurred to me, like, maybe it was because everybody died. Inspiration is weird that way. You would think, because so much beauty does come out of the dark when you're an artist, that having the dark happen to you would be really inspirational. But when it's happening to you, it's kind of not. It's paralyzing. And especially if you don't really know how to navigate out of the dark, you just get stuck. Did someone just say yes with their fingers? It's true. And if you're a creative person who's ever tried to write when you're in the middle of grief, you know that that's probably true. This is Haley, everybody. Thanks. So, Anthony used to say, if you don't deal with your grief, your trauma, it goes into the cellar of your soul and lifts weights. I love that you guys think that that's funny. Because you fucking know. But the nice thing about being an artist is that there's no statute of limitations on the grief or the trauma that you experience. It doesn't go away, ever, when it's over. And sometimes, you know, it can take years and years and years for you to get to the point where you can actually use it. So, this is one of the songs on the new record. And it's an old story, but a new song. And it's a true story. I've learned a lot of things to a lot of friends, like dresses and records and books. And a lot of the time, I never see them again. And in a weird way, I think that works. 'Cause the thing about things is that they can turn evil when you start to forget what they're for. So if you're not sure what you did with my sweater, I'll just have to love you a little bit more. I had a ring, it belonged to my grandfather. He was a mason and gay, and he was distant and bitter for all of my childhood. We never had much to say. He wasn't afraid to give tokens of affection, so I stole the ring when he died. And then 20 years on, when I lost it in a bar, I had this fight, what am I? Start meaning things nobody actually said. And if he couldn't make something mean something for me, I had to make up what it meant. I think it's a poem and I think it keeps going. And I've borrowed and loaned lots of things. 3 nights ago, in the bar where I lost it, the bartender gave me the ring. Thing about things is that they can start meaning things nobody actually said. If you're not allowed to love people alive, then you learn how to love people dead. Start meaning things nobody actually said. And if you're not allowed to love people alive, then you learn how to love people dead. He loved me, and he believed in me. We believed in each other so much. We believed in each other's musicianship, we believed in each other's voices, and we killed it. We got in the car over and over, and we played in empty bars until the bars weren't empty, and then they were full, and then it all happened. And we came here to San Francisco. But I was really prolific during that time because I was so believed in. And, there was always a show around the corner. I found I actually did my best writing. Some of the best Dresden Dolls songs were written the night before the gig. Because I'm such a greedy bitch. I had such insatiable, what's the word I'm looking for? Instant gratification. I just wanted it. I didn't want to write a song that maybe someone would hear next month. I was like, no. Like a 6-year-old with a watercolor. And it was fortunate because we were playing all the time, so I was really prolific. I wrote and I wrote. I didn't write so much about all the people who had died. I didn't write about the abortion I had when I was 17, not right away. I mostly focused on what I had seen other women doing, which is writing songs about disappointing men. Give a listen to the first Dresden Dolls album. It's all based on one disappointing man who's coming to the show in LA. It's also worth pointing out that the Dresden Dolls started in 2000. We started right when the internet started. You guys know the internet. It's terrible. And, we were an independent band for a long time. So, we had our posse and our friends and our fans and our community, which was building slowly and really beautiful. But then anytime I was feeling masochistic, all I needed to do was log on to the Boston Noise Board, which was an early form of Facebook. For you children out there, we had this thing before Facebook called bulletin boards. They were cruel and unusual. And I would just search for anything that had Amanda Palmer or the Dresden Dolls in it, and it was just all bad. It was there that I learned that I was a fat, hairy, sexless, talentless cunt. If I was in the mood, and I was often in the mood, because who's not in the mood for a little masochism? And yet, there were people coming to our shows every night who believed in us. And we signed after every show, and especially if you guys were there in the early days, those shows were magical. We were such a family. And Brian and I would sign after every show and try and meet every human being, because that's why we loved doing it. We wanted to be connected. And all of these people would make the audience never scary, because we met everybody. We knew everybody. We heard everybody's stories, and everybody had a story. There was so much pain, there was so much abuse and rape and suicide and darkness. And we felt like we were helping. And so when I would go to the internet and read all these terrible things, I was like, well, I have a choice. I can believe you, or I can believe these people. I'm gonna believe these people. Way more attractive option. And things were actually pretty great through my 20s, and then in 2012, things really changed. I did a giant Kickstarter. A lot of you guys probably supported it. And I got heavily criticized for a while for using Kickstarter period for crowdfunding, which people thought was bad and greedy. And those people were really easy to ignore. I was like, you just don't understand how we do it. So you can criticize all you want, and I'll try and explain again, but, you know, you're over there and we're over here and we get it. We get it, right? We get how it works. It's a consensual, it's an exchange between two consenting adults. We're all about it. And then I went on tour, and there was the controversy about asking my fan base to come play music on stage for free. And again, like, I got really heavily criticized, but I was like, you just don't really get it. Like, you don't really understand how we do it. We're punk rock, we help each other all the time. I've asked, I can say yes or no. Everyone is having fun, why are you yelling at me? It's fun. I'll do a TED Talk. It wasn't until the spring of that year, in 2013, that things got very fucking bad. The Boston bombing happened. And when the Boston bombing happened, a few blocks from my arts collective, I went onto the internet all day and couldn't actually physically connect with anyone because we were being told to stay in our homes. There was a manhunt going on. And we were barraged with these horrifying images, like blood in the streets of Boston. It was a massacre. All of these dead people, these injured, limbless people, and then the hunt for this killer. And a few days later, Neil and I were in a bookstore cafe, and I wrote this poem, this off-the-cuff poem, in like 10 or 15 minutes, and it sort of dared to empathize with what that kid, who they had just caught, you know, in the bottom of a boat, bleeding in someone's backyard in Watertown. Like, what was he thinking? What was going through his head? How would it possibly feel to have just fucking done that? And just be waiting to be found. And this kid, this 19-year-old kid, was from my neighborhood. He was from Cambridge. I had friends whose kids went to high school with this kid. I know because I talked to them. It was so close to home, and it was so fucking frightening. So I wrote this poem, I took my laptop, I gave it to Neil, and I was like, are people gonna get mad at me about this? And he was like, there's a few typos there. So British. Send. And actually, what was interesting is there was a couple of waves. There was wave one, like it went on my blog. I happily read, like, you know, the 10 or 15 comments, oh, this is really beautiful, so sorry for what's happening in Boston, we love you. And then a right-wing blog found it. And my life changed. I couldn't read my Twitter feed fast enough. But what was most frightening, you guys, is that the left-wing press in Boston got angry at me. So the right-wing people, again, like, they were really easy to ignore. They were calling me a terrorist sympathizer and a terrible poet and a bleeding heart liberal, and I was like, yes. But what was really painful is the people from the left came at me as well. Like, this is tasteless, Amanda. It's too soon. You don't do this. Why are you doing this? And most painful, most hurtful was we get it, Amanda, that you believe in compassion, you believe in empathy. That's great. But you have to understand, we all believe that there are people with whom you do not empathize. There are people for whom you do not have compassion. And he is one of them, and you've crossed a line. Do you not see that? And I did it. I just didn't agree. But all of a sudden, I felt crazy. Because this we that I thought was we, this like nice land of lefty liberal people, didn't agree with me. And it wasn't just that, you know, people in my own family didn't agree with me, my own friends didn't agree with me. I started feeling incredibly lonely. It got to the point where I would go into a coffee shop in Boston and I was like, I think the person making my coffee might hate me. It was scary walking down the street. And like the ultimate panacea, like the ultimate safe haven was Anthony. And a few days after this all happened, and like all of these newspapers had ripped me a new asshole, I went out to have dinner with him. And I knew, I mean, this is the one who taught me, my mentor, everything about radical compassion, unilateral compassion, right, for everybody. And he had seen what was going on. And we got together, and Anthony was like, man, I just saw a patient today who doesn't know that I know you, and all he talked about for 40 minutes was how much he fucking hates this woman. And I was like, at 2, I would run into friends on the street who were like, Amanda, man, you're having such a hard time. I'm so sorry. And by the way, I agree with you. We should have compassion for everybody. I was at this party last night, and man, people fucking hate you. And I was like, thanks. I'm telling you, that's so nice. What was the most painful is that none of these people actually knew what was going on in my life. None of these people knew that Anthony, my best friend, had just been given a terminal cancer diagnosis. And that the reason I was even in Boston to begin with was so I could take him to chemo. And for the first time since college, I couldn't write anything. I just couldn't. I didn't have anything to say. And I felt like even if I said it, I wasn't sure people wanted to hear it. And while all this was happening, I was traveling around the globe delivering the Kickstarter house parties. Here, too. Some of you were probably there. We had a great house party. I had just gotten a death threat into my website. I was basically crying into my pillow every night trying to figure out how and when this would end. And I went to deliver a house party in Nashville. And some of the parties happened in lofts and churches and, weird venues. This was just in someone's house. And I stayed nearby, and a few hours before I had to be there, I was reminded of this sort of like this little seed of a song that I had started. I hadn't finished writing a song in maybe a year. I had just been totally blank. And I thought, I don't have to write this song to be amazing. I don't have to write this song to play it to a theater of 2,000 people. I could maybe just write this song for these people. Like these 20 people who are going to be in this living room, who I trust. Like I trust these people have my back. I'll just write it for them. So I did. I'll play it for you. You think I shot their children from the way that they are talking, and there's no point in responding, 'cause it will not make them stop, and I am tired of explaining and of seeing so much pain in the very same safe havens where I used to just see how great I've been drunk and skipping dinner, eating skin from off my fingers, and I tried to call my brother, but he no longer exists. I keep forgetting to different. Two friends hooked up to hospital machines to fix their cancer, and there is no better place than from this waiting room to answer the French kid who sent an email to the website late last night. His father raped him and he's scared. He asked me, how do you keep fighting? And the truth is I don't know. I think it's funny that he asked me, 'cause I don't feel like a fighter lately. I am too unhappy. You are bigger on the inside, but your father cannot see. You need to tell someone. Be strong, and somewhere some dumb rock star truly loves you. Perspective from my view here by the bedside. It is difficult to see the ones I love so close to death. All their infections and prescriptions and the will to live at all in question. Can I not accept that my own problems are so small? You took my hand when you woke up. I had been crying in the darkness. We all die alone, but I am so glad that you are here. You whispered we are so much bigger on the inside. You mean everybody. Someday when you're lying where I am, you'll finally get it. Beauty, we are so much bigger than another one can ever see. But trying is the point of life, so don't stop trying. Promise. Say is that we will be crippled by the darkness. if we cannot have compassion for the heart that is the darkest. And I warn you, like an opiate, its efficacy wears off from the first attempt.
You gotta use it wisely.
I would like to talk about abortion. When I started this tour a mere 6 weeks ago, I had no idea how bad things would get so fast. I don't know how much you guys have been reading the news, but it's fucking bad. If you got a wound, you're in trouble. Everybody's in trouble. So I mentioned earlier, I had an abortion when I was 17, and as abortions go, it was not that bad. It happened with my boyfriend. We had been together for a long time. We were very in love. I had an understanding family. I was scared to tell my parents, but I also was more scared to hide it from them. So I told my mother. And she was really good about it. She didn't judge, she didn't get angry at me. She told me that she would support any choice that I made, and when I told her I want an abortion, she was like, okay, good. I was in high school, right? And I went to high school in a wealthy suburb outside Cambridge, Massachusetts. Like, nobody in my high school got pregnant. Or actually, no one in my high school got pregnant without other people finding out about it. And my mom made an appointment at Planned Parenthood. And my boyfriend and my mom took me in. And what's weird is, I spent so long trying to write about it and trying to find a way in and trying to figure out what a song about abortion would be about. And I had some really strong and moving images from that day. One of the things that I remember being the most painful, the thing that was the most painful about that day wasn't the procedure. It was the walk from the car to the building. That was physically the most painful thing I went through, because there were all of these people yelling at me, holding up signs of bloody fetuses. And it was so frightening, but everything that came after seemed easy. I also remember, I don't know why I remember this, but I have this image seared on my head of my mom at the counter of Planned Parenthood, putting down her Visa credit card. And I just remember thinking, God, this is so fucking weird that my mom is putting my abortion on her Visa. And my beautiful boyfriend, who was so supportive and so loving and also very torn up about this, gave me that day as a get well present a Christmas cactus. It was Christmas. And, you have to remember, we were both goths. So everything was just dripping with meaning. And I was like, this Christmas cactus I must keep alive. forever. This Christmas cactus will follow me through my whole life. This will be the Christmas cactus that I take care of and I keep alive. And I put it on the mantle in my bedroom and forgot to water it. 2 months later, it died. And I was like, right? I don't need to say it. Maybe that's the right appetite. And when I got into my 20s, if you guys know the Dresden Dolls, and clearly some of you do, I did try to write about abortion. But I did it the only way I knew how. Like, writing about abortion is really hard. And the thing that I mostly couldn't figure out is, like, who's the voice? Who speaks? You know, me in that situation, me with my feet in stirrups, the unborn child, my mother, the protesters, like the doctor, who is it? And what am I trying to say? How do you write a song about abortion without getting it wrong? Like, without being too sentimental, too political, too heavy-handed, too judgy? Like, how? What do you say about something so weird and complex? And normal. Thank you. So, if you're familiar with the early canon of the Dresden Dolls, you know my first attempt. I was like, I know what I'll do. I have this amazing drummer. We're in this amazing band. I will cast me and my drummer as crazy, jazz handsy, punk cabaret, back alley abortionists. Dripping with irony, and it was like a lost musical theater thing from a very dark piece of musical theater. If Weber and Rice decided to write musicals, like, instead of using the Bible as their source material, they used the satanic verses. It went over okay. But again, like, it was so sarcastic, it had to be. That was the only door I could find in there. And then a few years later, I tried again. See if you can detect the irony. It's in there somewhere. When I got to the party, they gave me a party. I must have been thirsty because the jacket's so big. When I got to the bedroom, there was somebody waiting, and it isn't my fault that they were burying raped. When I went to get tested, I brought along my best friend, Melissa Mahoney, who once been molested. She knew how to get there, she knew all the nurses, they were all really friendly, but the test came up positive. I've seen better days, but I don't care. I just sent a letter in the mail. When I got my abortion, I brought along my boyfriend. We got there an hour before the appointment. The Beatles, the abortion Beatles. So you my vacation was over, the word was all over that I was a crack whore. Thank you. So that song got me in trouble. But again, like, and there's a theme here, guys. It got me in trouble, not in the way I would have expected. Some right-wing people were upset because I had just like dared to be a woman singing about abortion, period, and that made me a witch. And I was like, oh, that's fine. What was really upsetting was that there were a bunch of feminists who got upset with the song.
What?
Well, I will explain. We're here all late. I remember one article in particular. There was a feminist writer who said that the song was not a good contribution because it was making light of date rape and abortion. And what's amazing to me now is that I really I had the perfect comeback and I fucking missed it. I was just not as clever back in 2008. And, I mean, beyond the obvious, which is that satire is important and irony is a thing. Mind you, this was an American journalist. People in the UK loved this song. All of those, UK feminist journalists spoke fluent irony. But when I look back at it, that song was actually one of the most honest depictions of what it felt like to get an abortion at 17, where one day, you're going to an appointment at Planned Parenthood. Of course nobody knows, because you don't tell anybody, because that is not the way it's done. And the next day, you're just back in physics and French class. You have to think like that, because you're forced to. And, the idea that a song like that was making light of abortion, I wish I could go back to the writer and say, I'm an artist. My job is literally to take dark and make light. And to get that. And I also, music is really powerful and really specific. And I also wonder, if some of it was just the tone, because this song is obviously like a campy Beach Boys-y major key song, but if I had just changed this note in the whole song to this note, and just ramped down the tempo a little bit. When I got my abortion, my boyfriend I think they would have been date rape, abortion, sad, bad. Song, sad, bad, good. But it's not like that. Not if you want to make fucking art, fucking fuckers. A few years after that, in my early 30s, Neil and I had just gotten married. We were, our relationship was very new, everything was really fragile, and we were in Edinburgh to work at the Fringe, the festival, and it was gonna be this amazing time. You know, we had rented a big house, all of our arty bohemian friends. It was just gonna be an endless, wonderful art party. And I felt terrible. I had a urinary tract infection. I went to a doctor. They asked if there was any chance I was pregnant. I was like, no fucking way. They gave me an antibiotic. And a week later, I found out I was pregnant. I called our family doctor. What did I do? I told him the name of the antibiotic I had taken. And he said, oh, Amanda, I'm so sorry. You're gonna have to terminate this pregnancy. Do you know what to do? And we were lucky. We had friends in Edinburgh who were pals with a gynecologist. They called her right up. She whisked me to her clinic on a weekend. And she gave me an abortion pill. It was actually a pretty terrible experience. And people have had experience, you know, good and bad experiences with surgical abortions and pills, but I had a pretty terrible experience, and the pill was just like 10 hours of complete hell. And, you know, and there I was, like, with a show the next night, which I did, which was, by the way, the Evelyn tour. Me and my soulmate, Jason Webley, in a conjoined twin dress, with one twin bleeding heavily. It was dark. He's a good friend. But also, like, we were out of our milieu, right? Like, we were in wonderful, accepting, everything fucking goes art festival land. And so I tried something. You know, when I was 17, I just had my abortion. You know, 3 or 4 people knew about it, and that was it. And, you know, here I was, like, in all these pubs and bars and dressing rooms, and, you know, people that I knew vaguely well would be like, hey, Amanda, how are you doing? And I'd be like, I'm shitty. I have an abortion on Tuesday. Do you say that? And I clocked the emotion that went along with it, right? It wasn't that I was ashamed. It wasn't. It was that I didn't want to burden anybody with this weird-ass news. You know, they weren't really asking me how I was, were they? Right? So, like, every time I would say it, I would just be like, am I just this, like, awful loudmouth person who's saying this thing? But what was incredible is that literally everyone I told, like, their shoulders dropped in relief. And everybody had a story. Every fucking person. Oh my God, I'm so glad you said that. My girlfriend got pregnant last year at Fringe. Nobody knew about it. I was in a run of shows. She had to go to a hospital. It was complicated. What happened? I just took my sister to an abortion. I just got an abortion 6 months ago. Every fucking body. Everybody was somehow involved and somehow hanging on to some dark secret. And I started looking around to these pubs and dressing rooms, and I was like, am I fucking crazy, or is it everybody? And actually, if you look at the statistics, and how many people know, and everyone has a sister, and everyone has a girl, you know, yeah, it is everyone. It's just not polite to talk about it. But the more I talked about it and saw that it actually helped unburden all these other people, the stronger I felt. And then I hit 35, and that was a fucking bummer. Because I had set 35 as this magical age where I would just know whether or not I wanted to have a child. It did not fucking happen. I remember waking up on my 35th birthday just going like, nope. I was just insanely ambivalent, like as bad as it gets. Not ambivalent in that way where you don't care. Ambivalent in that way where you're torn in two. I could just so easily picture both paths, and I could not decide. So I started interrogating all of my friends relentlessly. Like everybody I knew for a year, I just every artist who had a child, every artist who had chosen not to have a child, every single person, old people, young people, new mothers, and I was just like, what do I do? Do I do that? Should I do this? Is it a thing? I was scared. I was really enjoying my life. I loved my life. I was getting better at art. I was touring. I was happy. Everything was going pretty well. But, there was this sense that, if I had a child, I might start writing songs about meadows. I don't know why meadows, but that's what I thought. I was like, there will be meadows. I can't go there. I will become this insufferable asshole if I'm a mother, and I will just start singing songs about balance and about how everything's going to be alright. And fuck that. I don't want that. And also, people weren't very helpful. I couldn't find an answer, and the pros and the cons just sort of piled up in increasingly intimidating mountains. I would have conversations with friends who were literally in the same breath. They would be like, Amanda, do you know how much fucking work it is to have a child? A living child that you have to take care of? If you're not sure you want to do this, don't fucking do it. On the other hand, children are the most magical animals. Just never intended to spill your joy. And I was like, that's not helping. Don't do that thing. You also have to remember, I was a touring artist at the time. I was living my life on the road. I hadn't grown up around a lot of children. I didn't have friends who had children. So almost all of the children to which I got any exposure were in airports. All of them. Those were the children. They were such unhappy children. And also remember, all of the parents to whom I was getting exposure were airport parents. And they were pissed. And this was also right around the time when Frozen was everywhere. It was just inescapable. I would just you would look to the left and to the right and Frozen would just be in your face. And these children and these parents at the airports were just laden with Frozen merchandise. It was just all so distasteful. I did not want to be one of the Frozen people. I had this one friend who I really trusted. She was a super cool indie musician. She had toured and then just decided to stop and have a kid, but she was still really amazing and self-possessed. And I just called her and I was like, can I move into your house for a couple days? I need to watch. So I moved into her basement. And the kid was 3, and I was like, are you writing about meadows? What has happened? Is it good? Is it bad? Should I do it? What do you do about all of these things? What do you do about Frozen? What do you do about screens? And she was like, we have a good rule. We don't have any screens except there's one television on the second floor. It is only connected to a vintage VHS player. And the only VHS tapes we have are Fellini movies. And I was like, Frozen versus Fellini. We could do that. I could do that. That's fucking weird, but it's amazing. And she was not lying. I walked up the stairs later that day and her 3-year-old was watching Roma. Is this even allowed? Like, are there police who come and are like, I don't know. And then the stakes got very high, very fast, because I got pregnant. And I thought that getting pregnant would be its own answer, and it wasn't. And it actually was only maybe 3 weeks ago, I felt so happy. I read a New York Times article where there was a research study done, and it actually turns out that about 20% of women who find out that they're pregnant don't know what they're going to do. And like everything else in the world, we think that shit is so binary. Like you're either the kind of woman who's really excited to have children, who's trying very hard, and you want that, or you're the person who's decided that you don't. And there is not a whole lot of room for nuance and the in-between. And I was so in-between. And I was so scared. And I was so indecisive. I was excited at the beginning, but then I changed my mind and I was like, I actually don't think I want to do this. And poor Neil, who said again that he was so supportive, I will just support you no matter what you choose. And I was actually changing my mind from one day to the next. And we weren't together most of the time. We were traveling and touring and working. And I couldn't figure it out. I would be really excited one moment and then just go like, I just don't think I'm ready. I was working on my book at the time. And my feelings about getting my book right and my book out right were so strong and so getting in the way of any desire I had to have a child. I was like, well, that's an obvious fucking answer. If you're really more interested in this book than you are in having a child, maybe you shouldn't have a child. Neil started calling it Schrodinger's baby. And I tried at the time to write about this, and I found it really difficult. I had a draft of a song at the time that was written from the point of view of the fetus, and it was a forgiveness song. It was like everything will be okay. It was that song, like just don't make the fetus sing. And you're already a bitchy controlling woman. As it turns out, there was actually a really good song for this already. I just hadn't realized it. And I need you guys to do something with me. It's kind of weird and it's kind of hard, but you're all very smart and I know you can do it. As I play the song, I need you to hold several simultaneous narrators in your head at one time. The first voice singing is the artist who loves her life and just wants to stay in it, but also has this inkling that somewhere out there, maybe it would be a good idea to have a child, but she sees the frozen people. The second voice is the mother that lives in the imagination of that artist and is like covered with children and frozen shit, and is looking back woefully at the artist who is like partying and smoking a cigarette and holding a martini with a kimono and is just so happy. And the mother is like, fuck you. The third narrator, and you can do this, you just have to think very quickly as the song goes fast. The third voice is the fetus. It's all gonna make sense in 2 seconds. Will you do this with me? Look at this stuff. Oh my God! Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? Wouldn't you think I'm a girl? Are you doing it? The girl who has everything. Okay, if you have the room in your brain, there's a fourth voice you can add in here. It's really good. It's the actual vagina. It helps if you envision an angry, neglected vagina. Look at this trove. Treasures untold. How many wonders can one hold? Looking around, sure, she's got everything. I've got gadgets and gizmos. I've got princesses and voices galore. You want to think of a ball? Big deal. I want more. You ready? I want to be I want to see dancing, walk around on those, what should we call them? Flipping your fins, dancing, stroll along down. Wandering free. Wish I could be part of that Thank you for going on with me. So,
Fun cat!
show about this much dark shit without a Disney song. So meanwhile, while I was in the throes of this impossible dilemma, Anthony was getting sicker and sicker. And Neil and I were, still living in Boston, trying to take care of him. But he had this evil leukemia, and he was never really given a good, solid death sentence. For a couple of months, everything would be looking up, and it was going to be great, and he was going to live, and then the lid would close again, and it would open. It was exhausting, and it was constantly terrifying. I tell you. It's about to get worse. Shake it off. I didn't want to bug him with this. And I during these few weeks in which I had to make this decision, because I knew I had to make it because time was running out, I had to go do Canadian Music Week in Toronto. And I remember being at the airport in Toronto on my phone, calling Anthony and going, listen, I know you're dying. I'm so sorry to bother you with this. I just do not fucking know what to do, and I am exhausted, and I see all the pros and all the cons, and I just cannot decide. And can you just give me this one time? Could you just tell me what to do? I'll be so grateful. And he was like, no. So that didn't work. And in the end, I was so angry at my instinct, right? Which turned out to be a non-instinct. You know, I just thought that if I got quiet enough, if I meditated enough, if I listened enough, there would be this still, small voice who would guide me. That didn't happen either. In the end, my ambivalence just wound up being its own answer. I figured if I couldn't get to yes, then the answer was probably no. Neil and I were in New York City at the time that I decided to have an abortion. And I did what I imagine a lot of women are doing nowadays, which is, you know, when I had the abortion when I was 17, my mom had set it up. When we were in Edinburgh, we had these nice friends, and I just flipped open my laptop and was like, you know, we were staying in a shitty Midtown hotel in Manhattan at the time. And I just Googled abortion near shitty Midtown hotel. Thanks, Google. I had also, you know, spent a lot of time on Google trying to figure out if Google had an answer about whether or not I should have a child. Bad idea. Don't do that.
Yes.
I Googled what Buddhists thought about abortion. I Googled everything. There was no answer in the computer. And I made an appointment at the closest place, not knowing much about abortion and actually finding it quite difficult to, you know, there was just no Yelp for abortions. I just picked the place that was nearest to us, and we went. And the first sign that this place was very, very bad was the fact that I wasn't given an actual appointment time. I showed up in a giant block of women, and we were just made to wait in a huge waiting pen to be called. And this room was really awful. It was like a soulless cinder block waiting room with a bunch of uncomfortable chairs and a bunch of very, very quiet, sad-looking women. Neil had come with me, but I think there was one other man there. And the worst thing about this room is that there was a giant television screen blaring an Adam Sandler movie.
Oh.
It was the last straw. I was so ambivalent and fragile and exhausted to begin with that I just sort of sat there like minute after minute after minute, sitting there in silence, just losing my resolve, but not able to leave because I had decided, which is so sad. And so sad for all these women. And they finally called my name after what felt like hours. Neil was not allowed to come in with me. I had to go in alone. And I was given an ultrasound so they could make sure I was pregnant. And then I joined a bunch of other women in kind of an ante-room to the surgery. And there was no place to put our stuff when we got undressed, so every woman was given a plastic laundry basket to put all of her belongings into in a hospital gown. And there was just this row of us sitting in these chairs with these hospital gowns and all of our belongings in our laps. It was so inhumane. And the girl in front of me was probably 14 years old. And I looked at her and I tried to make eye contact with her, and she was so calm. And I thought, fuck, I'm in my 30s, I can actually kind of handle this. I wonder what is going on in her mind. And is she here alone? Does she have anyone on the other side? And she went in. I waited, and then it was my turn, and I was called in, and I sat there and I thought, this is such a reckoning moment, right? Like, I actually still have the power, if I want, to just get up and walk out of this horrible place and change my life forever. And this would be kind of an amazing story to tell a child. I mean, kind of a sick one. And then I was like, that's not a good reason to not get an abortion. They just say, go. So I went in. The doctor was very, very busy. There were a couple of nurses. No one said hello. I just got on the table and put my feet up in the stirrups. And they began. And I started to cry. And they said, are you all right? And I said, I'm good. I just, can you give me a minute? And the doctor said, you've got 1 minute. And I couldn't really regain my composure. I was just lost. And I said, I might need more than a minute. Do you mind if I go back into the little waiting room and can you just send someone in front of me? I just need a second. And they said, sure, fine. I got down. I went back into the waiting room. They sent the next woman in front of me. They came out, they asked if I was ready. I was like, I just need a second. I just need one more second. They sent the next woman in. And I just sat there, paralyzed, feeling so stupid that I couldn't go in and I couldn't leave. And then eventually the nurse came out and she said, listen, the doctor's not going to see you today. Even if you think you're ready right now, you can get your deposit back, or you could leave your deposit here and you can come back tomorrow. And I looked at her and I said, is this a thing? Does this happen? She said, yeah, this happens. And the worst thing was, I went out, I got Neil from the waiting room, and he, of course, assumed that everything was all over and that I had done it. And we went out in the hall to have a little privacy. And I broke into tears and I said, I couldn't do it. He got this huge smile on his face.
Oh, no.
And he said, so we're going to have a baby. And I said, sorry, I just couldn't have the Adam Sandler abortion. And we went for a walk in the park, we cried. And then we went back to our shitty Midtown hotel, and I did what, again, I assume is happening out there all over on many laptops of many women, and I Googled again. Nice abortion. Me or shitty Midtown hotel. And didn't know because it was hard to figure it out using the computer as a resource. That you could pay an extra $300 or $400 and go to a place 10 blocks away that would treat you humanely. So we made an appointment, a real appointment. We showed up at this nice place. We were greeted at the door. I was called by my name. Neil and I were given cups of tea. These really nice women took care of me. And after I got that abortion, everyone left the room and gave me a minute to myself. And I started weeping again. But I wasn't weeping because I felt guilty about having an abortion. I wept because I started thinking about the 14-year-old girl. I wept because I had the $300 to have the nice abortion. And she had to have that one. And what was also really weird is I sat there on that table, and maybe it's not that weird, but it was the first time the thought deeply occurred to me. Having been so taken care of and considered. And I was like, I think maybe I'm ready to have a child. Not right now. But I'm actually not sure if that thought would have occurred to me if I had had the Adam Sandler abortion. And not long after that, I got pregnant. And I just felt very certain. I was ready. It was time. I was ready to have a child. And Neil was like, he thought it was going to be a Schrodinger too. But I was ready and I was happy. And the only thing that was really complicated about this pregnancy is that Anthony was very, very, very bad. Neil and I were traveling in the UK when I was 7 months pregnant. And we got a frantic call from one of my friends back in Boston who said, I think you need to come home right now. My friend Nicholas, his wife had died a couple of years before of cancer, and I trusted him the most, and I knew that if he was saying, come now, he had to come now. So we scrambled. We got on the next available flight from London to Boston, scared the whole time that we might miss it. And we went to Anthony's house, next to my parents' house. His wife Laura was there, and some of our friends, and we sat there, and for 3 days we just were with him while he died. And everyone tries to tell you that death is so grotesque and horrific and repugnant. And I didn't feel that way. I just felt honored to be there. And at the moment when Anthony died, I was, my belly was gigantic. And I don't really believe in anything, but I was like, if there isn't anything, it's just like so convenient. It's just such a quick jump. And I held him. I listened to him take his last breath. And Laura was really smart. She didn't let the people come right away to whisk him away. She let him stay in his hospice bed on the first floor in the living room. I went there. I'm not usually a person who wakes up at the crack of dawn. He died at night, and I went and slept at my parents' house. And I came back the next morning at like 6 in the morning just to look at him. And Nicholas drove up right at that moment. He walked into the room, and we looked at each other. We didn't exchange any words. And Nicholas took out a guitar and started playing. And I just thought, wow, like death isn't actually scary. And I took all of that into my birth experience because they tell you the same thing about birth, that it's going to be painful and frightening. And by the time I was ready to give birth, I was so sick of hospitals. I had been in one for 4 years dealing with Anthony's chemo. I had had my shitty abortion experience. I just wanted to be away from doctors with watches. I want to start a non-profit called Doctors Without Watches. I went down to Tennessee to this amazing, magical place that I found, a farm. And I had this baby in the middle of the woods, very far away from a hospital, with a couple of midwives who'd been doing it for a long time, with no drugs. I had a 24-hour labor. And it was awesome! But you know, I was grieving. You know, I gave birth right in the middle of grief. It was like a birth grief sandwich. That's not part of the show, I just came up with it. And because I had made such a deliberate choice to have a child, right? I really wanted to feel the full weight of motherhood. And so I made this stupid rule, which is like, I wanted to do fucking everything by myself. I didn't hire any childcare. I had no babysitters, no nanny. I was just like, I will feel the full weight of motherhood. And Neil was like, why? And I was like, because I have to, because I chose. It was weird. I know it's Mother's Day in 2 days. Just so you know how long I went until I fucking hit the wall, it was about 4 months. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, baby. Right after, so we named the baby Anthony, and Ash for short. We named him Anthony after Anthony, David after Neil's dad, Carl after my brother. And for short, we called him Ash, the thing that is left over when everything's gone. And he was such a paradox. He was this really soulful, beautiful, giving, compassionate guy with a hard edge who had a knife collection. And he threatened towards the end that he was going to leave me all of his weapons, and he's good at it. All of my best songs have always been written basically in one sitting. You know, that song was written in an hour. And right after I wrote that, I had planned a trip, just me and Ash, and I called it the Crazy Uncle Tour. I wanted to take Ash to meet all these important people in my life. All the crazy uncles. And so I took him down to Austin, Texas to meet crazy Uncle Thor. And Thor lives in a 2-bedroom bungalow. Thor's the drummer and you know, he was the drummer in my last band, and he's the drummer in Swans, and he's just this amazing guy. And he lives in a 2-bedroom house in Austin, Texas with, I am not shitting you, 27 rescue cats and dogs. And we called it Animal Camp for Ash, who was like, you know, 4 months at the time, and I was traveling like, you know, with a suitcase and a backpack. I just had no frozen things and no baby accoutrements and like no place to put the baby, so the baby slept in the dog bed with all the dogs. And then I went up to Washington to visit Jason, my twin. And we went to Everett, Washington, and where Jason lives on a houseboat. And Ash slept in a nice, soft accordion case so that he would not roll into the river. And Jason and I got talking the way we often do about songwriting and how productive we're feeling and what's going on. And Jason was very down on himself at the time. You know, he just hadn't been writing anything, and I was like, me neither, but I have a baby. And we made this, I told him about Machete and like just how satisfying it felt to just like, you know, write with an art gun to my head. And we made this pact late on the first night that I was there in Washington that we were gonna write 11 songs the next day. Because we're stupid. And I was like, really? Like, we're really gonna do this? We're both gonna try and write 11 songs each? And Jason was like, yeah, we can do it. And I was like, okay. You realize we have no babysitter and we have to take care of this child, but whatever. So we woke up the next day, we went to brunch. And then Jason had to go to the hardware store because he had to fix something. And then it was like 3 o'clock. And then he wanted to take me to his local donut shop because this was very important to him for some reason. But he showed me this donut shop, and he had to show me this donut shop at a particular time of day when all of the like weird, crusty Everett, Washington Republican regulars gathered in the donut shop. And we went into the donut shop, and I was wearing like a trench coat with a Bernie Sanders button. They didn't like us. So we got some donuts, and like by the time we got back to Jason's house, it was like 5 o'clock. And I was like, are we gonna do the thing? It's 5, and Ash is up. Finally, like Ash fell asleep. Jason went into one corner. I went into another corner, and he has a piano, so he wrote his song on accordion. He wrote half a song about the donut shop. It's like a heavy metal accordion song. And I don't remember how the verses go, but I remember the bridge. Were you there? He played half of it at an animal shelter benefit we did a few days later, just to show that he had done something. The bridge of the song goes, it's like a chant. It goes, do you want a donut? No, I do not want a donut. Are you sure you do not want a donut? Yes, I do not want a donut! He has to finish that song. I did not write 11 songs. I wrote one 11-minute song. Which I'm going to play for you. And then I have good news, which is then it's intermission. And you get to get up and pee and drink alcohol.
There is no intermission.
No, there really is an intermission. You need it. This show is fucking long. It's halfway through. There's a bunch of fun things to do at intermission. There's hankies. There's the patronator table. I'll tell you at the end. Let's just do this insanely long song. Our son is 4 months old, his name is Anthony, or Ash for short, and he's too small to do things by himself. We were in LA over Christmas in a rental, and we jury-rigged a place to change his diapers on a shelf. I was peeing in the bathroom and it left for just a second, cause I thought he couldn't move and he was safe. As I came out, I saw him falling in slow motion to the floor. It was probably the worst moment of my life. And then I accidentally stole a thing of chapstick from the Safeway. I didn't see it till we got out to the car. I would have usually returned it, but I was overwhelmed and late to take the baby to my cousins up in Carmel Bay. In my defense, I bought like $87 worth of groceries, and the chopstick was $1.99. I know it wasn't the right thing to use my newborn child as an excuse, but it felt like a good reason at the time. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I cried. As I pulled out on the highway, I said, right. At least the baby did. crocheting every row. I've been emailing her pictures of the baby and the blanket every day since she had sent it in the mail. But they were of one that someone else admitted she was really nice about it. Then I went and shoplifted a pair of ugly sunglasses from Goodwill. They were on my head. I tried them on and left them there, but that's not really bad compared to when we left the baby in the car. At least he wasn't in there very long, and not directly in the sun. Thank God no one walking by happened to notice what we've done. I'm even scared to put these lyrics in a song. Everything is relative and everyone's related. I can't do that much right now, but take care of this baby. I figure everything is technically alright, if at least this baby doesn't die. And then I took a plane to Washington alone so we could visit Jason Webley, who's his godfather and plays a mean accordion. I couldn't wait to see him and share tales of our disasters over dinners in his house. But when I saw I'd lost my passport, so I got a rush appointment at the place where you replace them. And I drove the baby in, and on the way I got a speeding ticket. When the cop came to the window, I was shaking and I said, I'm sorry, but you couldn't hear me. That's how loud the sound of screaming was, 'cause he was hungry. And I think that I was speeding 'cause I panic when I hear him cry. My God, what kind of mother am I? And as I pulled out of the breakdown lane, I cried. And as I pulled out on the highway, I said, at least the baby didn't die. At least the baby didn't die. While I was waiting for my passport, I was hungry, so I twittered for a coffee in the neighborhood. And there I saw a woman who was sitting at the bar, and it was noon and she was drinking, and she called across the diner to me, how old is your baby? And she smiled at us nursing, and she said she had a daughter who was grown. And then she paused and said she also had a son. And when I came and was about to leave, I picked him up and crossed the room and touched her sleeve. I said, hey, this baby wanted to say hi. And she held him tight and started to cry. And I'm sorry that the story's gotten on, and that everybody's crying in the song. And that back to the car and turned the radio and heater on and sat there with the baby in the back. And they were talking about Syria and climate change and ISIS and the candidates' positions on Iraq. I feel so useless in this universe. I know I could be doing worse and trying hard to stay at peace inside. I know it's hard to be a parent, but this mess is so gigantic. I wonder if I should have had a child. As I pulled out of the parking lot, I cried. And as I pulled out on the highway, I said, at least the baby didn't die. Right, at least the baby didn't die. Everybody! At least the baby didn't die. I can't hear you! At least the baby didn't die. Stand up and sing! At least the baby didn't die. Sing like it's your making up day! At least the baby didn't die. And I made it to the hospital place on time. And they might revoke my license for a while. And I might get caught for retroactive theft. And I might get turned into the DSS. But at least the baby didn't die. Thank you very much. It is time for intermission. What did you say? You said? Nothing's happened yet.
Everything has happened.
How can you be too sad? You just had intermission. You were happy, you bought things, you got drinks. You missed me, I missed you. Oh, if you're not sad enough, I just play you the most morose songs from the first Dresden Dolls record. Speaking, while we're here and we don't have a terrible curfew tonight, I can give you a Dresden Dolls update. First of all, if you haven't been following and you don't know, Brian Viglio, the amazing drummer of the Dresden Dolls, just moved to LA, so he's doing
LA is so fucking far.
crickets and sad sounds. If you lure him here, he might just drop up. The better news is that it's very possible that after this record, we're going to work on other Dresden Dolls. But I'm gonna have to write it, so you gotta get on my fucking Patreon. So. coin. He's just a toy, but I turn him on, and he comes to life, automatic joy. That is what I want. Coin, operated boy, made of plastic and elastic. He is rugged and long-lasting. Who could ever ask for more? Love without complications galore. Many shapes and weights to choose from. I will never leave my bedroom. I will never cry at night again. Wrap my arms around him and pretend. Operated boy, all the other real ones that I destroy. Cut out another candle to my new boy, and I'll never let him go. And I'll never be alone, and I'll never let him go. And I'll never be go, 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 never be go. Not with my coin, operated boy. To make you feel smitten, my sad picture of girl getting better. Can you extract me from my plastic fantasy? I didn't think so, but I'm still convinced of when you persist even after I bet you $1 billion that I'll never love you. And will you persist even after I've kissed you goodbye for the last time? Will you keep on trying to prove it and dying, to lose it and losing my competence? I want to, 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 I experienced with girls, but I know he feels like a boy should feel. Isn't that the point? That is why I want a coin-operated boy with a pretty coin-operated voice, saying that he loves me, that he's thinking of me straight. is what I want. Calling operated boy. Compassion is complicated. I keep learning this in new and different, exciting and annoying ways.